Was Arkana about to defeat Yugi, Master of Magicians, by TGS Anime?
Yugi versus Arkana. What happens when two dark magician duelists clash? Well, you get some shenanigans, but when the threat of losing is that you get your legs brutally cut off, then I think you can just grasp for whatever straws you can to make sure that doesn't happen. And
yeah, this was heavily censored for the English release. Oh, I love the laser blades. Oh, mwah. Chef's kiss for kids.
of course, when I say brutally cut off, of course I mean they'll be sent to the Shadow Realm.
Exactly.
Spoilers! Yugi wins in the end, thanks to the help of the Dark Magician Girl. But this made me wonder, could the outcome of the duel have been different with any slight changes to either player's plays? And the more important question, what is the Dark Magician Girl doing? Sponsoring today's video. First for Figures have a new line of magnetic pop collectibles releasing on the 4th of June called Figures. For you guys, I think you'd be most interested in their Yu-Gi-Oh figures collection. With 4 currently to collect, Yami Yugi, Dark Magician Girl, and Blackluster Soldier, it has never been this easy to collect them all, especially at only $15 a pop. What a bargain! These high-quality pixel characters are magnetized, meaning you can attach them to their reversible metal backgrounds and either mount them on the wall with their included sticky, or use the stand provided and let them sit on your shelf side by side. And that's not all. A lucky few will pull the rare chase backgrounds. These come in bronze, silver, and the elusive gold rare. Honestly, they look really amazing. The figures come with a QR code that you can scan, and when you do, it adds it to your collection on the app. If you use my link now, you will not only receive a 5% discount on your first purchase, but you will also get access to the store 24 hours before anyone else. Use the link in the description or down in the comments to be the first to get your hands on these figures and complete the set if you fancy. And with that, let's jump into the duel.
I'd give that a 10. Audio was consistent, flush, transition was great. Honestly, kind of a banger idea, because I mean, like, acrylic stands exist, right? Like, I'd like Team Ruby as acrylic stands, but obviously when, you know, other people move them or things happen, they kind of just break. So I think magnetizing to backgrounds, I actually think that's really cool. What kind of sold me over on it was him using the app and being able to scan it as a QR code. I think that was a really great integration of both the product as well as in the ad read itself. I would give that a 10.
The duel begins and Yugi goes first. He draws, and his opening hand consists of Alpha the Magnet Warrior, Brain Control, Celtic Guardian, Karibo, Beaver Warrior, and Full Moon. Yugi sets his Brain Control face down and then summons Alpha the Magnet Warrior into defense and ends his turn. Now, just to remind everyone, during Battle City, if you set a spell card face down, a normal spell, it becomes a quick play spell card. I'm telling you now because it's going to happen a lot throughout this duel, and I need you to be on board for the rest of this duel. Okay?
Yeah, I think that this was a big holdover for a lot of people. I know me specifically, when I was playing in about... Oh god, when was it? Hidden Arsenal was already in full swing. I think it was Dark World format 2013 when I actually started to first play in LGSs. I had to have somebody explain that, yeah, like, no, you can't actually just flip up spell cards. They have to say quick play specifically. This was young Kip, right? I didn't have a firm grasp on the intricacies of Yu-Gi-Oh! As a system, but this is relevant to go back in time. This is relevant for Battle City specifically.
Okay. It's Arkana's turn, and he draws. His opening hand consists of Legion of the Fiend Jester, the Mystical Guillotine, Mystic Tomato, Beckon to the Dark, Doll of Demise, and Dark Magician. Right off the bat, Arkana has already cheated. He has trimmed the edges of his 3 copies of Dark Magician to make it so the odds of drawing them are drastically increased.
I actually really like that Battle City covered cheating in the capacity that it did. I actually really liked it because remember the, oh god, I can't remember, it was the Rare Hunter with Exodia, and he had a special like contact lens to see certain markings so he could make the best decisions in regards to draws. Like, oh... I love that Battle City did go into cheating. I actually really love it.
Arkana summons Legion of the Fiend Jester into defense, and then ends his turn. Now, Arkana could have gone on the offensive straight away here. Activate that Guillotine card, it lets him destroy a card on the field, so pop Yugi's monster, attack with his Fiend Jester, do a little bit of damage, maybe set some of his other cards face down. How come he didn't do this? Well, this is a battle of magic, and
I was about to say, no, I like that he's talking about this because yeah, do you know who that is? That's Kaiba. That is raw power, smash into opponent, proceed to beat them to a pulp, right? That's not a battle of magicians.
And both duelists are going to sort of hoard their magic cards so they can do a big back and forth magic battle. So I think people don't want to waste their magics in case the opponent has a magic that can interrupt them, because Yugi does have a face down card on the field. So I guess it makes sense. I'm not going to call it a misplay or anything like that. Like sometimes going on the offense really early in the duel has a snowball effect, but in this case, I'm going to let it slide. I think it's fine. But I will say not setting that guillotine card as well as that back into the dark, 2 cards that destroy cards face down in preparation for Yugi's next turn is a misplay. Things don't pan out where he needs them, but there was a hypothetical scenario, which we're going to talk about in a minute, where having set these 2 cards face down would have kept him alive. Spoilers. But he should have done that and he didn't. So this could have cost him. It doesn't, but it could have. And regardless, it's also worth mentioning probably setting the Mystic Tomato face down is the most beneficial first turn move he could have made.
Yeah.
Because it floats into another monster. So
it's so weird to see this Mystic Tomato art. It's very strange to me. So I think he's absolutely right. And I think we can chalk it up to a misplay, but it's like, you're used to fighting Blue Eyes or big beefy decks, and then suddenly you go against unironically Dark Magician, and you're like, but why is he not swinging into me, right? And they're having their Eternal Souls, Magician's Navigation, etc. in the back row, right? Like how you're having to change up your game plan slightly. Sure, your deck realistically, especially in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, is going to play the same, right? With Yubel, which I gush about constantly, right? You got your Samsara D Lotus plays, you got your Dark Deck Beckoning Beast plays, you have your unfortunate Fiendsmith plays, especially when you just link one to Requiem and just solitaire out your deck. I disagree with Fiendsmith Requiem. No, I will not. I will not get off my soapbox. I will die on that hill. It's so bad for the game. But when you look at it, like you're having to adjust how you play. If I'm playing against a back row heavy deck that I know is showcased, like it has Mirror Force and stuff, or it has Magic Cylinder and stuff like that. I mean, maybe I'm not going to swing with Ferudris, right? Maybe I'm going to play a little bit more defensively and force them to swing into me, right? Like, sure, they're going to summon the Dark Magician, they're going to Magician Navigation out, whatever, be able to use Phantom of Yubel to be able to change the effect to destroy Yubel in my deck, right? Like, sure, have my protections, play the game as if I'm still playing the game. However, am I not going to change that up a little bit? If they're just smashing in with Obelisk the Tormentor, cool, smack into my Yubel all day. I do not care. But it's changing how you're playing the game. But you can also overcorrect how you play the game, and this is what Arkana is going into here, right? Arcana, where, yes, being respectful of a fellow magician, but to the detriment because now he's overthinking it.
he should have done that. Regardless, it's Yugi's turn, and he draws Card Destruction. Knowing Arcana has probably done some kind of sleight of hand, activates Card Destruction to force both players to discard their entire hands and redraw. Arcana discards 5 cards. He draws and gets Mystic Tomato, Thousand Knives, Ectoplasma, Shadow Balance, and Nightmare Chains. Yugi discards 4 cards. He gets Dark Magician, Magical Hats, Curse Breaker, and a mysterious card. Following this play, Yugi activates his set Brain Control, which lets him take control of an opponent's monster. He takes Legion of the Fiend Jester. He tributes it and Alpha the Magnet Warrior in order to summon his Dark Magician. Wide open, Yugi attacks Arcana directly, dealing the first damage of the duel. Yugi ends his turn. And right here, Yugi could have won the duel. Instead of using Card Destruction, just summon that Celtic Guardian into attack. Switch Alpha the Magnet Warrior into attack, use Brain Control, take control of Jester, switch it into attack. Attack with all 3 monsters, dealing 4100 damage, and that's game. Now, while yes, this duel could have been that simple, Arcana did have a counter for this that he could have set up on his last turn. He didn't, so he could have lost, but he could have prepared for it. He could have set his Guillotine and Beckon in the Dark face down. He could have then protected himself by destroying Yugi's 2 monsters, and then during Yugi's end phase, he gets his Jester back, which he could then most likely go on the offensive and attack potentially for game. So, huge misplay Yugi, you could have won this turn. Huge misplay Arcana, you could have set yourself up to defend against Yugi's potential OTK. but that didn't happen, but you should have anyway. So anyway, that was the play. It's
I would argue, yeah, it's a double fault, because at that point, if Yugi could have won, we're arguing optimal play. But by that, same token, if we're arguing optimal plays, Arkana, he clearly had an out to that, right? So there's clearly that back and forth. And realistically, this duel, and sure, the obvious, well, how do we pad out the time? How do we sell those Dark Magician packs? How do third party vendors get to sell those Dark Magician foils, right? Like, sure, we do have things like that. Don't get me wrong. From a meta explanation, right? Selling a product, Yu-Gi-Oh! As a vehicle to sell the card game. I think that's a pretty reasonable take. Entertainment to sell product, but like, even from an in-lore perspective, like even from a Battle City perspective, it's proving which magician is better, right? And from an audience perspective, do you think it would have been fulfilling? Well, sorry, do you think it would have been fulfilling for one, the duel to be finished that early, especially without Dark Magician hitting the field at least once? And two, how many people would still talk about Arkana, years down the line in regards to, man, we never got that fight. Yugi, he didn't get to summon his Dark Magician, and, Arkana could maybe have just been good. Because you'll have those people argue that in the fandom, right? I mean, in Naruto, we have, I still complain about this a fair bit. We never got full power Naruto and Sasuke versus full power Madara. We never got Rene Sharingan Madara actually going against the two of them six paths enlightened, as they'll call it, right? Because Zetsu stepped in. So I think from both a meta-analysis of selling product, but also an in-universe of like, okay, but we need to see who is the true master magician here. Like, I think that fits. I think that tracks.
Arkana's turn, and he draws Dark Renewal. He summons Mystic Tomato into defense, and then sets his Dark Renewal face down, and ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Beta the Magnet Warrior. He summons it into attack. As he does, Arkana activates his Dark Renewal. Due to this card's effect, when a monster is summoned, or when a monster declares an attack, he can tribute that monster along with one of his own to special summon a Dark Magician in his grave. He tributes Beta the Magnet Warrior along with his own Mystic Tomato to summon Dark Magician from his grave. Yugi, not wanting to crash his Dark Magician into Arkana's, ends his turn by setting Magical Hats and Curse Breaker.
I actually really like, so obviously down the line in GX, right? Like, we usually don't see people, like, we'll see people crossing cards, like crossing staples and stuff, where, like, especially in Duel Monsters, right, we go into, like, Card of Sanctity and stuff. Card of Sanctity, Monster Reborn, Pot of Greed, etc. Like, we'll have staples that float between, right? Much like you see in average deck lists, right? But it's rather uncommon for people to kind of play the same thing. Like, you have Rex Raptor playing dinosaurs. You have Weevil Underwood playing insects, right? Yugi almost exclusively plays the Dark Magician, right? Or hands off, like, in the filler, season 4. No, which one was Virtual World? I think that was season 3. Oh, it's been too long. I clearly have to watch Duel Monsters again. Where, Taya ends up getting, like, Dark Magician Girl is kind of like her, like, deck master kind of thing. Like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Commander status. But, like, I think it's interesting to see that, there are people who do have kind of the same cards as the universe does imply. And even down the line, we see Aster Phoenix and Jaden both duel with heroes, right? They both slam into each other with heroes, but then Aster Phoenix has, similar to how Arkana's Dark Magician looks different than Yugi's Dark Magician, it's taken a little bit of a step further to give us the other elemental hero line, right? Phoenix Enforcer instead of Flame Wingman, Shining Phoenix Enforcer instead of Shining Flare Wingman. And I think it's really cool that you can kind of have divergent lines of evolution, so to speak, and it's established in the series. I would love them to do more things like that. Like, can you imagine, I don't know, we get like a veritable who's who of like Gundam Dynasty Warriors, right? Like how everyone just kind of comes in. You have Quattro being able to meet up with Amuro. You have Amuro being able to meet Setsuna FCA. Setsuna meets Benager, right? Etc. Doman Kashu's in there with Master Asia. Like a veritable who's who. We're just going to isekai everyone into this world. So imagine a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Series with that, though. And then imagine you have Zane Truesdale, and then later Zane Truesdale, like Hell Kaiser status, right? And then, like, you kind of have them, with their divergent evolution lines, right? Where, realistically, you kind of probably split the deck in two. You would probably, and it would be an excuse to give things more support, right? Where you have, Zane, who's going for more of that Cyber Twin Dragon, Cyber End Dragon play with Power Bond. But then you have Hell Kaiser, which is going to be going into like, you know, the Cyber Dark plays. And then you can get even modern support like Cyber Dark End Dragon because, well, I'm going to, you know, not super poly, but effectively super poly. I'm going to take your thing, you know, creature swap it, whatever, mind control, brain control, and then I'm going to fuse it together, right? You see how that would be super cool, though? And it could also showcase, like, diverging line. And then obviously it could also push new product as well, because let's be real, everyone loves legacy product. I love legacy product. Yes, I bought all the new Evil Hero stuff. I love me some legacy product.
He's down. And here we might have another misplay. Arkana should have waited to use his trap, since Dark Renewal can be used on a summon or an attack. Instead, he should have let Beta destroy Mystic Tomato. Mystic Tomato's effect lets him summon out a Dark Monster in his deck with 1500 or less attack. Dark Magician attacks the newly summoned monster, however now we use Dark Renewal to tribute Dark Magician to summon out Dark Magician. Arkana's turn, activate the Beacon of the Dark is about to draw to destroy Beta. Yugi will use Curse Breaker to negate it. Then activate 1000 Knives, this time Beta is destroyed. Magical Hats can't be used without a Magician on the field in the anime, so with Dark Magician and a 1500 attack Dark Monster on his side of the field, both can attack Yugi directly for game. Arkana wins the duel. Hypothetically. This play all depends on whether Magical Hats can or can't protect Dark Magician from Dark Renewal. Later in the duel, Magical Hats protects Dark Magician from a spell card, targets get to be destroyed. However, Dark Renewal tributes the monster, so I wonder if it can be used in the response. It's hard to say, so this one is ambiguous. Could he have won the duel this turn? Maybe, maybe not. It's Arkana.
So hear me out. Here's my controversial meme hot take here. You ready for this? It's just actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Because players don't know how to read their cards, right? What does Masker Restrict do? Masker Restrict. Am I literally a joke to you? But it's so meta because players constantly misread cards. I constantly misread cards. Many people constantly misread cards. And I think that, like, sure, you could argue from an artist standpoint, from a writer standpoint, sure, maybe it's that either something got lost in translation or something happened or, you know, insert reason here, or ambiguous, I think is the best word here. But to me, and I'm sure many other Yu-Gi-Oh players, it's hilarious because this is actually how the game works. Like, somebody be like, oh yeah, cool, I'm going to Promethean Fire Princess, and then while Promethean Fire Princess is on the field, they drop, I don't know, they try to summon another, like, they try to go through their Unchained thing, even though Promethean Fire Princess says, like, you can only summon, like, fire monsters when she's on the field. How many players have misplayed that? Let's be real, let's be honest, let's be fair. We've all misplayed at least 10 times.
Arkana's turn, and he draws Beacon to the Dark. These next two turns are going to go really fast. They're just going to set up loads of spells to go on a big dance of the magicians, so let's tear through this. Arkana sets his 1000 Knives, Nightmare Chain face down, and ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws a mysterious card. He sets it face down and ends his turn. This spell or trap, along with one we're going to see a little bit later, they both get set face down and never used. We never find out what these two cards will be, so it's really unclear what they were. It's Arkana's turn, and he draws the Mystical Guillotine. He sets it face down and ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Monster Reborn. He sets it face down and ends his turn. It's Arkana's turn, and he also draws Monster Reborn. He sets it face down so that it can now act as a quick play spell. And here, Arkana begins the Battle of Magic. He activates his Mystical Guillotine, which lets him destroy a monster on the field. He targets Yugi's Dark Magician. However, Yugi activates Magical Hats, hiding Dark Magician under one of 4 hats. Arkana chooses the wrong one, so the guillotine misses. He follows this up by activating his 1000 Knives to destroy one card on the field. He chooses another of the hats and guesses correctly. However, Yugi activates his Curse Breaker, which negates and destroys all face-up spells on the field. 1000 Knives and Magical Hats are negated and destroyed. Arkana moves into his battle phase and orders Dark Magician to crash into Yugi's Dark Magician. Both are destroyed. Yugi and Arkana then both activate their set Monster Reborns to bring back their respective Dark Magicians. With no winner of the magic battle, Arkana ends his turn here. However, I will say both duelists had 4 set cards on the field. There was space for 1 more spell and trap if they wanted to use it. That Beacon of the Dark in Arkana's hand, if he would have saved it for right now or had it set face down, he could have used it right now to destroy Dark Magician, and then he could have attacked directly and done some damage to Yugi.
Right.
Now, I will say here, to reverse engineer this duel, there was a lot of just picking up cards, setting them face down, and they don't get revealed until turns later. So some of these cards might not be in their hands earlier, they might appear later. However, to the best of my knowledge, the way that I've watched people put cards in their hand and take from their other cards rather than the cards they've drawn, I feel like the cards I've given them in the turns I've given them is really accurate. But obviously, there's a chance I could be wrong, but I thought I'd just mention that now, as some of the misplays could be chalked up to that. But regardless, it's Yugi.
I feel he's been incredibly fair, and I feel that sometimes, let's be real, animation, whether it's cartoons, anime, etc., are not immune to I almost said ammunition errors. Oh my god. To animation errors, right? Like, there's been a number of times where something has kind of popped up and it's been a little inaccurate. I mean, this is obviously kind of like, there's more of that, I guess, in, I would say, the dub of Yu-Gi-Oh! UGX, right? Where they had to kind of like paste over cards. I think Jaden has like 2 mirror forces, but he could have that in the Japanese as well. Like, it's hard to say, and I feel he's been incredibly fair, but like literally without understanding like what the intent was. We can understand what the intent is. The intent is to sell Dark Magician Girl. If I remember correctly, is this not Dark Magician Girl's debut, right? Or at least close to it. Like, if the intent is for Dark Magician Girl to debut, it makes sense to, you know, kind of have Dark Magician v Dark Magician. They're in a stalemate. Dark Magician Girl succeeds Dark Magician and is able to beat Arkana, right? Like, we know that that's reasonably the philosophy going into this. But without seeing the play-by-play, we don't really know. And even then, if we want to talk about errors, right, the whole Mask of Restrict situation with Loomis and Umber, right, which, yes, absolutely, chat does clarify that in the manga and in JP, and he even clarifies in JP Translate, like, there are some differences, but the whole, it's one of those that really kind of, like, twists your head around, and also sees how cards and effects like that can honestly warp certain formats. So it's interesting to watch, but it's also one of those you have to keep in mind, because that was literally the same season as this. This is Battle City. This is season 2. So it's entirely possible that there may have been an animation error. But once again, I feel he's been incredibly fair in saying that this is what happened here.
His turn, and he draws another mysterious card. He ends his turn. It's Arkana's turn, and he draws Doll of Demise. He sets Back into the Dark face down, and then ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Mystical Ref Panel. He sets Ref Panel along with the mysterious card face down, and ends his turn. So Yugi here has 3 set cards face down. One of them is Mystical Ref Panel, and the other 2 are mysterious spells or traps that will not be used for the rest of this duel. Don't know what they are, and they're gonna get like negated later, so they can't be activated, so he never gets an opportunity to use them anyway. So yeah, I'm really curious what these 2 cards would have been. It's Arkana's turn, and he draws a mysterious card.
I mean, reasonably, if it just gets negated and it doesn't matter, it could be something like Mirror Force and Magic Cylinder, let's be real, right? I think Magic Cylinder would be very fitting in this, especially because Magic Cylinder can, like, in this season, isn't it like it can, like, redirect the attack to a monster? Wasn't that scene with, like, Dark Magician Girl and Magic Cylinder with Strings and Slifer? What, wasn't that the whole interaction of trying to redirect it at Slifer? Yeah, Magic Cylinder was kind of nutty.
Arkana again begins the magic battle. He activates his set Beckon to the Dark to send Yugi's Dark Magician to the grave. But Yugi activates Mystical Ref Panel to negate the effect of Beckon to the Dark and redirects it to one of Arkana's monsters instead. He chooses Arkana's Dark Magician. However, Arkana had planned for this and uses his Nightmare Chains, which can only be used in response to a trap. It negates its effect and then makes it so that one of Yugi's monsters, Dark Magician, can't attack, can't change its battle position, and is unable to prevent the opponent from attacking directly. With no way to stop the attack, Arkana's Dark Magician attacks Yugi directly. Arkana ends his turn. And unfortunately, I have to give a misplay to Arkana here. He could have won this turn. So he actually does have a Doll of Demise in his hand, like confirmed, guaranteed. He should have summoned Doll of Demise immediately. He could then have done this whole play, attack with Dark Magician directly, and then attack directly with Doll of Demise. That's game. You threw the duel, Arkana. You totally could have won this turn. And I guess it's worth noting that because Nightmare Chains negated Mystical Ref Panel couldn't have stopped Back into the Dark. So Dark Magician really should be destroyed here, but maybe it's like a priority thing. It got equipped, so maybe it moved or something, so it's not the worst thing in the world. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Big Shield Gardener. He summons it into defense, and then ends his turn. It's back to Arkana, and he draws Anti-Magic Arrows. Attempting to go for game, he summons his Doll of Demise. Now, while you at home might think, wait a minute, he's going to use those Anti-Magic Arrows to make sure Yugi doesn't use those two face-down cards. He's then going to normal summon his Doll of Demise. He's then going to attack into Big Shield Gardener with Dark Magician. He'll take 100 damage, but Big Shield Gardener's detrimental effect is if it's attacked, it switches itself into attack. He can then attack with Doll of Demise, destroying the Big Shield Gardener, dealing 1500 damage because his monster has 1600 attack. He's only got 1500 life points left. Arkana will win the duel. If you thought he'd do that, you are wrong. He's going to do a completely insane play instead. But regardless, Arkana, you could have won the duel right here.
That's kind of wild, actually, because, I mean, yeah, that feels like that's a pretty logical play.
Instead, he activates his Ectoplasma, which lets the turn player choose 2 monster types. One monster of each of those types can be tributed to deal half its attack as damage to the opponent.
Oh, yeah.
Arkana uses its effect, declaring Fiend first. He tributes Doll of Demise, dealing damage to Yugi. Arkana then betrays his companion Dark Magician and uses it too for Ectoplasma by declaring Spellcaster. The damage from this would win Arkana the duel. However, some shenanigans happen. It seems the gameplay mechanics get a little bit confused here because despite the fact that a player can only use Ectoplasma during their turn, Yugi's Dark Magician, because it has the same name as the Dark Magician Arkana declared, also becomes available to be tributed for Ectoplasma. Now, Yugi doesn't know this happens. His monster chooses to do this himself because sacrificing monsters is a big thing this episode. Dark Magician self-sacrifices itself for the effect of Ectoplasma. So it tributes itself, the other Dark Magician, they clash with each other, nullifying the damage, which I'm kind of okay with. There is somewhat of an explanation saying that, like, since both the monsters have the same name, it's as if they could be both tributed, but it also doesn't work because Ectoplasma doesn't work like that. So it's really like, I don't know if that's fair. But what I really dislike about this is it robs Yugi of having to make a moral decision here because he was giving Arkana flack earlier. It's like, bro, you're sick and twisted. You sacrifice your Dark Magician like it's nothing to you. Monsters are beautiful creatures. You need to cherish them. You can't just tribute them like that. However, Yugi is literally about to lose the duel. The only way he can survive is, let's just say he knows he can use Ectoplasma as well to nullify the damage. He has to come to a decision. Do I tribute my Dark Magician to keep myself alive, or do I stick to my morals, let my Dark Magician stay chained up on that cross thing, and then I'll take the damage and lose, but I die with my morals? That doesn't happen because Dark Magician makes the decision for him. So I thought, yeah, sometimes you can be a little bit hypocritical. I guess it's just the way you tribute monsters. Like, I've seen Yugi tribute monsters all the time, but I guess, like with the Catapult Turtle thing, with the Raphael duel and this one, it's like a nasty way of doing it, but sure. Arcanus.
Yeah, I mean, so like he says, and like Yugi points out, right? And I think this also plays into the reason why Arkana is misplaying, because he's kind of focused on dishing out as much pain as possible. Because sure, yeah, being able to attack into Big Shield Gardener, he hurts himself, and then being able to go for, swing for game, right? Sure, absolutely a thing. But when you look at, okay, using the Ectoplasma to sacrifice your own monster to deal damage, and then sacrifice the your ace monster effectively, right, to for minimal gain. Sure, it was going for game, don't get me wrong, but for sacrificing for effectively no reason, it does showcase the twisted nature of Arkana. So I like that from a storytelling perspective. Definitely think that it's more character and like anime-ism versus actual gameplay mechanic. And I think it's okay when we look at it like that, because yeah, in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh, in the world of, duel monsters, right? I mean, there's going to be people who are swayed by emotions, right? And I think it's really cool to kind of see some of those things. And those are going to be some necessary concessions to be able to tell a compelling story. Because would it be fair, okay, outside of like maybe like, Battle City Finals, if everybody played optimally, would that be fun to watch? Or would it bog down turn structure, especially for a format as powerful as this, right? And then I say powerful in a very subjective sense, right? It's like fusion monsters had summoning sickness. We weren't quite, aside from like Revival Jam, we weren't quite, Monarch, Frognarch status, right? Like we had some decently good cards, but I mean, it was still very much, you had to build up your fields, right? It wasn't like it was today. So I don't know. I like it. I think that I also like get why they would do that. I think it's done for the duality of Arkana's Dark Magician being needlessly sacrificed, where Yugi's Dark Magician can selflessly sacrifice himself to save Yugi. And I think that there's a duality of logic there. But I think I also I see where he's coming from with it robs Yugi of a decision. And then I think on, what you also have to think of the viewer and the audience, right? And I don't think the viewer/audience would have a good feeling with that, especially from some, one and done villain like Arkana, right? Now, if it was somebody like Aster Phoenix and Jaden, right? Because, I mean, like, Jaden lost a couple times, did he not? But Aster Phoenix in GX Season 2 was, like, his first real loss. That kind of shocked people. So, like, imagine that kind of feeling, but applied to this. I don't think it lands well, if that makes sense. I think there's a good logic train here.
Sets his Shadow Balance trap face down and ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Gazelle, the king of mythical beasts. He summons it into attack, planning to attack Arkana directly and go for game. However, Arkana activates Shadow Balance. This trap makes it so that when the opponent summons a monster and controls more monsters than Arkana, he can now destroy monsters the opponent controls until they have the same number of monsters Arkana does. With Arkana controlling
it's like worse evenly.
no monsters, both of Yugi's monsters are destroyed, leaving both players with an empty field. With no more plays, Yugi reluctantly ends his turn. It's Arkana's turn, and the penultimate turn of the duel. He draws and gets Dark Magic Curtain. Now here, Arkana notes that with Dark Magic Curtain, I can special summon a Dark Magician from my deck, but the detrimental ability of this card is the opponent can also special summon a Dark Magician if they have one as well. But Arkana knows for a fact Yugi only owns one Dark Magician card, so what's he to be worried about? He's gonna activate Dark Magic Curtain. He pays half his life points to do so. He summons a second copy of Dark Magician from his deck. He follows this up by activating his anti-magic arrows. This prevents Yugi from activating his 2 set mysterious cards from being activated until the end of the turn.
I love how Arkana is literally playing like an actual Yu-Gi-Oh player would. He's actually playing with like triplicates and stuff. That's so wild to see when it's just like Yugi's just like he's running like commander status out here with singletons.
Arkana enters his battle phase and attempts to attack Yugi directly for game. However, Yugi reveals that he too has a Dark Magician still in his deck, and so pays half his life points to summon it. Arkana justifiably says, no you don't have a Dark Magician, you have one Dark Magician, it's in the grave, this card only lets you summon from the deck, how can you do that? And Yugi says, you don't know about the Dark Magician's apprentice, do you? He's like, Dark Magician has an apprentice? He's like, yes. So I summon my Dark Magician Girl. Dark Magician Girl is summoned to the field. A replay occurs since the number of monsters on the field has changed mid-attack. Arkana decides to continue his attack since he can see Dark Magician Girl only has 2,000 original attack points. But this proves to be a huge blunder, as he didn't know that Dark Magician Girl has an effect to gain 300 attack for each Dark Magician in the grave. Both Yugi's Dark Magician and Arkana's Dark Magician, who was scorned from being cruelly sacrificed, lend their power to Dark Magician Girl. With 2600 attack, Dark Magician Girl destroys Dark Magician. With no further plays, Arkana ends his turn. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure Ectoplasma is still live on the field. What he could have done is actually use Ectoplasma instead after he got his Dark Magician out, and I guess after Yugi got his Dark Magician Girl out. Use Ectoplasma, tribute it, and do damage to Yugi, potentially winning the duel. This would win in the duel. It all depends on whether Yugi can also use Ectoplasma like he did last time with the Dark Magician Girl. Unclear. I wonder if it would win because it technically does have 2600 attack here. So the 2500, 26, they'd nullify each other, but then maybe Arkana would take only 100 damage, and then all Yugi has to do is draw a decent monster, and maybe you can win the duel there, because he only needs to deal like 650 damage. So, I don't know. Maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't. This is one of those duels where there's a lot of like, I don't know if things work like that kind of thing, because it's ambiguous. But regardless, there's one final turn left, and it's Yugi's turn.
Certified, like, what does Ectoplasma do moment? Like, what does Masker Restrict do? What does Ectoplasma do kind of moment? So, I mean, reasonably, I think if we're going with the logic on this duel, I think that, yeah, reasonably, if Arkana did go that route, if he did play optimally, there would be some sort of check to that. However, obviously from a narrative standpoint, we look at this as the Dark Magician Girl's reveal, and this is going to be Dark Magician Girl needs to seal out this game because we need to sell the pack that Dark Magician Girl is in, right? I think that that's one of those you look at, and I think the narrative aspect does kind of override the mechanical aspect of this. But I think that's honestly fine. It makes me wonder what happens if you, I don't know, say you do like a YouTube series where you have players misplay like this. And obviously people will criticize and critique it and stuff like that. But like, it makes me wonder if something like this would fly nowadays with like, say, a YouTube series, right? Being able to duel different quote unquote characters or people, and each of them has their own character flaws, and that will influence how they play. So they may be playing Dark Magician, but they're playing it very aggressively, and they're not setting as much back row, right? They're setting the minimum amount of back row that you need. They're playing what they need at the time, but they're not playing like a Dark Magician player. I think that that could be interesting.
In the final turn of the duel, he draws and gets a card that doesn't even matter because he simply enters his battle phase and uses Dark Magician Girl to attack Arkana directly. Yugi wins the duel. Luckily for Arkana, before he has his legs ripped off, sent to the Shadow Realm,
That's the one.
Yugi saves him. And with that, that's another duel analysis. Done. Want to watch a Dark Magician archetype video or a Dark Magician Girl archetype video? Well, I have those right here. Or if you'd like to subscribe so you can watch the new duel analysis videos when they come out live, you're more than welcome to. Thanks for watching, everybody. Catch you later.
And you should definitely go ahead, go over, subscribe, watch his content. He puts out amazing content. It's one of those, like, as I've said in the past, like, Requiem was a little bit of a bridge too far for me. We'll have to see if/when Requiem gets banned. I think, and we've talked about this before. So this duel right here does share a lot in tandem with modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually, people have criticized the state of Yu-Gi-Oh! So the reason why modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is structured the way that it is the first turn player will build up their board. The second turn player will attempt to crack that board. If the second player cannot crack the first player's board, the first player kind of just steamrolls to victory. If the second player cracks the first person's board, grats, they're successful. Now you can spend turns drawing cards, building up your boards again to crash, try to crack, etc. Right? So, but that's also why I play modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? To be able to go through, solitaire out some of my deck, if not half my deck, depending on how I draw, right? And thus you're able to kind of have this like high-powered conflict lull, right? Whereas it was a lot. We still had those in old Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Where you could tribute 2 monsters, summon Blue Eyes tries to crack, and then I'm going to mirror force this, and then you had a power turn, and then you have turn building up, and then you try to crash again as your opponent gets on another Blue Eyes. Maybe they Paladin a White Dragon it. Then you get into I'm just going to defissure that, right? Like, I feel that instead of a gentle up down, it's the peaks and valleys are kind of higher, right? They're more extreme, but I think the flow has remained ultimately the same. So this duel does share a lot with that, where it was very much a set board, crack board, build up, set board, crack board, build up, set board, crack board, build up, and then leading into the finale where Arkana definitely misplayed, but that's because he's blinded by his ambition, which story element plus meta element of we need to sell Dark Magician Girl, we need to sell the pack she came in, right? So I thought this was great, though. I thought that the breakdown was done very well. I thought it was obviously done in good faith. I thought that this was a really cool video to watch. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, TGS Anime, for an awesome video. Loved it. And I'll see you in the next one.